Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. This will be the spoiler-free review and analysis of The Mandalorain Season 2, Episode 3, Chapter 11, The Heiress. Wehen! Up she rises! Have I mentioned that I positively adore this show? This episode is a masterclass in fake-outs, visual artistic brilliance, staying true to your story and the stories that came before while forging new paths for your story. But first, take a deep breath. I want you to imagine something with me. Go back in time to a simpler time when you maybe didn't have to work for your living. You walk into a museum and take a deep breath of that special museum smell. The air is cool around you, but you know museums are like this. Something about preserving the artifacts. They must be cool and dry. You thought ahead, and you wore a warm sweater. It's almost too warm, a heavy knit thing that some uncle loaned your father in the far-off time before you were. You let the fraying sleeves slip down past your hands as you wander towards the exhibit of paintings that the museum has been advertising for weeks. The initial crowds have come and gone. A single school group trots after an eager young teacher, listening to tales of days gone by, and you drift away from them to examine the paintings on your own. One catches your eye. It is mostly shades of blue and brown, a fishing port from 100 years ago in some northern Eurasian coast. Dark clouds crowd the sky. The foreground is full of 1,000 things, familiar and alien at the same time. Fishing nets, pulleys, interwoven with ropes, buckets, all just subtly different, made alien instead of merely mundane by the passage of that great old enemy time. Then you note what caught your eye, the old fisherman in the foreground, the one who glares at you from over his shoulder for interrupting his work. He is wearing the same sweater as you. Even in the broad strokes of the oil paint, you can see the weave of the wool, and you smile as you curl your fingers into the soft threads. You and this alien being share something. Now, imagine that with Narnia-like magic, that painting came alive and with the creaking and humming of a busy port town. That is what they have captured in The Heiress. Okay, there is so much to unpack in this episode. The directing, the art, the subtle acting. It is hard not to spoil things and even harder to know where to start without spoiling things. First, let's start with the nonverbal acting. Just focus on the faces for a bit. Not the squid people faces. Those are pretty non-expressive thanks to about 40 pounds of latex and makeup. But the human faces. First, there is the woman who reacts to Mando's devotion to the way with... It's not surprise or derision, it's more frustration. She has dealt with Mandalorians like this before. She has worked with them. She doesn't like the fact that she has to work with one again, but she can put up with it. She is irritated but not surprised. And this is all expressed in a fraction of a second and without words. Then there are the enemy humans. The youngest of them has this super expressive face, which was clearly what he was hired for. He wasn't handsome by Hollywood standards, but he could emote on cue fantastically. In fact, every one of the enemy humans could do this well, from the satisfaction on the plumper one's face when he thinks that he has Mando trapped for a moment, to the stunned shock on the thinner one's face when he realizes that the plump one does not in fact have Mando trapped. These actors know how to emote with only their faces showing. I think one of my favorite parts of the whole episode was the look of sheets and blankets on the face of the younger two humans when they realized the outcome of the battle for them. Personally, the casting call must have gone something along the lines of the interview telling the applicants to imagine that they had just tripped while carrying a $5,000 bottle of wine to their boss, and they had to act it without words. It is as if the creators are trying to make up for our deprivation of facial expressions due to helmets for both seasons in just one episode. It wasn't just the humans without makeup either. While the squid heads might not get in on the face work, the frogs sure do. There's a moment in the Razor Quest where Mrs. Frog gets a delightfully understandable sheets and blankets look on her amphibious face. To tell you why would be a spoiler, so I won't, but I will probably make a video on that topic all by itself as well. Then there was the artistry of this episode. The first scene of the episode sweeps over a gas giant as the Razor Crest approaches the landing place for this episode. This is what I like to call an IMAX scene. It is the kind of scene you get it's the kind of scene you got the first time you watched that famous old documentary about the Grand Canyon in an IMAX theater. Your chest swells a little, and for a moment you can feel the sweep of time and the cosmos beneath you. These scenes are made to evoke very specific emotions, a sense of cyclic change as the salmon return to their spawning grounds, a sense of wonder as the flock of monarch butterflies, 4 generations removed from their ancestors who left, settle back on the trees in the warm southern lands. This feeling, this sense of change, the Razor Crest is turning a corner, the Mando has turned a corner, the show is getting onto it, is going to be different from here on out. Then the big beautiful scenery passes, and this feeling and you get down to the planet, and the sense of a master artist leading you through a Renaissance painting gallery intensifies. This is just one more dirty port that the Razor Crest has landed in, and yet the subdued blue lighting, each individual dock worker, how they move, the fact that they are not skulking around or wandering, but working on their own project. Even the very familiar, very comfortable sweater we see. I won't describe the sweater. It's one of those blue-brown 19th century paintings of the working fishermen and their fisher-wives came to life. It's as if it was just there. It is beautiful in a completely different way than the wide desert and the forest village were. This might be a rough place. This might be a place where violence can happen. However, it's not a place where, like Mos Eisley, where violence primarily happens. It's not a place where a body would be just tossed in a canyon. However, it's a place where work is going on. However, it's a place where a man might work to carve out a place for himself, and where he will feel comfortable bringing his wife to live, and she will feel comfortable bringing their child into the world. It's not just a place to pass through. This is a home, a place to build a life that is more than just mere surviving. The world building in this series is incredible, the sensations they give you when you come to each new port. And here, because I can find no better place to spring off on this tangent, I want to talk about the Razor Crest. Like I said before, everything in this show is doing far more than just one thing. The Razor Crest is first and foremost a cool spaceship. It isn't shiny and flashy. We love it in the same way we love the Falcon. It's a tie back to the Clone Wars, so it also pervades the air with a subtle but not overwhelming scent of member berries. It's a simple plot device that gets the Mando from point A to point B. It's a home for Mando and Baby Yoda. It is already doing a lot of work. But I think that the show has been hiding from us that it's doing much more than just that. Now, call me a victim of pareidolia, that condition that makes you see patterns where there aren't, but I think that the Razor Crest's physical condition represents the moral and mental state of its Mandalorian owner. When we first see it, it's in one piece and looks all right on the outside. It is a tough, nearly a shiny shell, but the inside is full of bodies that are neither dead nor alive. We have Din Djarin living in a hidden covert, hunting bounties. Din, who carries dark secrets, who freely murders any who stand in his way, and has done so in the past, but is trying to overcome what he had fallen to be, but seems somehow stuck at this point in his life, this kind of moral murkiness where he's no longer the free murdering guy that he was before, but he's not really gotten any further, neither a hero nor a villain, a sturdy shell with something rotting away inside. Then the child comes into the scene. Things begin to change. The Razor Crest no longer carries bodies. Din Djarin risks his own life to save people who he has no connection to other than human compassion. The Razor Crest still takes damage, but it can be repaired now because Din Djarin no longer carries his burden of hatred. Then Din Djarin, instead of facing the X-Wings with honesty and forthrightness, as logical as his actions seemed for him at the time in the previous episode, lied to the X-Wing pilots, ran and hid the Razor Crest, and the Razor Crest paid the price for his actions. The Razor Crest was damaged not by the X-Wing cannons, but by Din's own choices. But through it all, Mando had his code, and the Razor Crest held together. And then this episode happened. After meeting who he did and his precious code taking the slap to the metaphorical face that he did, I think the visual of the Razor Crest at the end of the episode is a very, very good representation of Mando's moral and mental state at the moment. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Is the physical appearance of the Razor Crest a metaphor for the state of the code within the Mandalorian who flies it? Leave a like if you agree, and leave a comment ripping apart my plating if you disagree. Peace out, my wonderful viewers.